Rome Reports comes to you from the Department of Social Communications, Catholic Archdiocese of Accra, this and every Sunday from 3:30 to 4 p.m. on GTV.
Our family has spanned the centuries and the globe. With God's grace, we started hospitals to care for the sick. We establish orphanages and help the poor. We are the largest charitable organization on the planet, bringing comfort to those in need. We educate more children than any other institution. We developed the scientific method and founded the college system. We defend the dignity of human life and uphold marriage. Guided by the Holy Spirit, we compiled the Bible. We are transformed by sacred scripture and sacred tradition, which have guided us for 2,000 years. We are the Catholic Church, with over 1 billion in our family, sharing in the sacraments and fullness of the Christian faith. Jesus started our church when he said to Peter, the first pope, "You are rock, and upon this rock I will build my church." So if you've been away from the Catholic Church, we invite you to take another look. Visit catholicscomehome.org today. We are Catholic. Welcome home.
Coming up in today's show, we attend the candlelight mass celebrated by Pope Francis for consecrated religious. Data on global religious persecution is presented in Rome. We visit a modern art exhibit in the Vatican. All this and much more here on Rome Reports.
St. Peter's Basilica goes completely dark on 2 occasions each year. One is the Easter Vigil. The other is this feast, the Day for Consecrated Life, which the Church celebrates together with the presentation of Jesus in the Temple and the purification of Mary. The suggestive procession began in the atrium of the Basilica. The choir sang the words of God's praise spoken by Simeon upon seeing the infant Jesus, "A light for revelation to the Gentiles, and glory for your people Israel." It's a way to symbolize that religious men and women are a light for the world. The Pope was very direct in his homily. He said in religious life, personal achievements don't matter, and neither does a lack of them, which he said can lead to discouragement. He says what counts is the amount of space allowed for God in one's soul.
Il tentatore, il diavolo, insiste proprio sulle nostre miserie, sulle le nostre mani vuote. In tanti anni non sei migliorato, non hai realizzato quel che potevi, non ti hanno lasciato fare quello per cui eri portato, non sei stato sempre fedele, non sei capace e così via, no? E rischiamo di perdere la bussola, che è la gratuità di Dio.
Pope Francis said what counts in religious life is a personal relationship with God's love. It is a relationship which requires one's own weaknesses in order to accept forgiveness and feel loved.
Credo che era Girolamo, che dava tante cose al Signore. E il Signore chiedeva di più. Lui gli ha detto, ma Signore, ti ho dato tutto, tutto. Cosa manca? I tuoi peccati, le tue miserie, dammi le tue miserie. Quando teniamo lo sguardo fisso in Lui, ci apriamo al perdono che ci rinnova e veniamo confermati dalla sua fedeltà. Oggi possiamo chiederci, io, a chi oriento lo sguardo? Al Signore o a me?
At the celebration were many different religious congregations. A Dominican and a Franciscan were in charge of the readings. A Benedictine and a Carmelite, among others, could be seen during the offertory. Pope Francis wore Paul VI's vestments. Among those present were the prefect and the secretary of the Congregation for Religious Life, Brazilian João Braz de Avis, and Spaniard José Rodríguez Carballo. The first meeting between the Pope and the new president of Argentina, Alberto Fernandez, seemed a cordial one. The meeting lasted 44 minutes. During the greetings, Pope Francis joked with the First Lady about her work with Scholas, the papal foundation which helps young people. The president gifted the Pope a handcrafted woven piece made by people with disabilities. He also gave him books on coffee shops in Buenos Aires and a statue of the slave Negro Manuel, who found the sculpture of Our Lady of Luján. The Pope in turn gave them a sculpture with the inscription, "Be Messengers of Peace." He also gave them the main official documents of his pontificate. He dedicated and signed one of them. Then Pope Francis read a prayer written by St. Thomas More to not lose one's good humor. It was their first encounter, and it was very symbolic, as Pope Francis is one of the first global leaders to meet with the new president of Argentina. With Cristina Kirchner, relations were cordially tense. With Mauricio Macri, they showed no signs of warmth. Time will tell what the relationship will be with Alberto Fernandez. The Crown Prince of Bahrain, Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, visited Pope Francis in the Vatican. The meeting was very cordial and lasted about 30 minutes. The prince explained that in spite of Bahrain's Muslim majority, Christians are not seen merely as guests, but as citizens. The prince gifted Pope Francis a small coffer with geometric figures evoking the seasons. The Pope gave the prince a medallion with an inscription about peace. Before departing, the prince invited Pope Francis to visit his country.
I hope you will visit them, and maybe next time we would be honored to receive you.
Currently under construction in Bahrain is the Catholic Cathedral of Our Lady of Arabia. It is being built on land the king gifted. It might be finished by next year. Catholics dream that the Pope will inaugurate it once it is complete. The Pope met with participants of the conference The Richness of Many Years of Life, which analyzes the challenges of old age and the pastoral care of the elderly. Pope Francis reminded them that the richness of old age is a precious treasure that takes shape in the journey of every man and woman's life. He said the aging of society in many countries should be a call to serious reflection in order to learn to grasp and appreciate the value of the elderly.
Mentre da un lato gli Stati devono affrontare la nuova situazione demografica sul piano economico, dall'altro la società civile ha bisogno di valori e significati per la terza e la quarta età.
The Pope reminded participants that life is a gift, and when it is long, it is a privilege for oneself and for others.
Oggi vorrei dirvi che anche gli anziani sono il presente e il domani della Chiesa. Sì, sono anche il futuro di una Chiesa che insieme ai giovani profetizza e sogna.
That's why he asked them not to let themselves be discouraged by the challenges of old age. He also emphasized the importance of dialogue between the elderly and the youth. The Vatican will spend 3 days looking at the richness of aging. It's the first international conference dedicated to pastoral care of the elderly. It gathers around 500 experts from 60 countries. The Pope has often mentioned the challenges the elderly face.
Le persone anziane sul piano sociale non vanno considerate come un peso, ma per quello che sono veramente, cioè una risorsa e una ricchezza, sono la memoria di un popolo. Lo dimostra il loro apporto all'attività di volontariato, occasioni preziose per vivere la dimensione della gratuità.
The conference aims to reflect on the throwaway culture, care for the elderly, their role in the church, and the responsibility of families.
Creo que hay dos dimensiones fundamentales.
I think there are two fundamental dimensions to keep in mind. The first is to evaluate their situation, including situations of limitation, abandonment, and being discarded, which are common with a large part of the elderly population. we also have to remember that the elderly aren't just beneficiaries of the church's pastoral care, but protagonists in that same work. For us, it's an opportunity to better understand what other countries do. We know what we do in Brazil, but we have no idea what other countries are doing for the elderly at the church and pastoral levels.
The conference is organized by the Dicastery for Laity, Family and Life. There are two ways to perceive the Pope: as tourists who see a celebrity while passing through the Vatican, or as pilgrims, like this Peruvian family who made the trip to Rome to see St. Peter's successor. First off, it's a huge blessing. One breathes peace. I feel a lot of peace from having been here in St. Peter's today. We came just so we could be at the general audience. Last Sunday, we were at the Angelus with the Pope as well. It's a really beautiful experience, however, to be inside and have him so close. Licia is a doctor in Spain. Violeta is a professor in Peru. For both, the Pope's words were a call to keep moving forward. For Licia, they motivated her to continue treating her most difficult patients. For Violeta, they encouraged her to not lose hope in front of the children she teaches, who often lack a family structure at home. We have to apply many strategies because these children need, even more than academics, someone to guide them in morals and values. I would see some kids who seemed like they wouldn't make it, but we can do it. They are children who need a lot of care. They need a lot of love because they are practically abandoned. Neither can forget Pope Francis's trip to Peru in January 2018. Violeta says it was a visit which helped remind them of the importance of forming stable families in society.
There are 26 monarchies in the world. The largest population ruled by a royal is Japan, with more than 125 million people. The smallest is Vatican City, which has an absolute elective monarchy and 800 citizens. Coming up after the break, the Salesians invite youth from around the world to their general chapter. You're watching Rome Reports.
Anti-Christian persecution has grown in intensity and scope. This is revealed by the latest report from Open Doors, an NGO which documents such cases around the world each year. They estimate that 1 in 8 Christians experiences persecution.
310 million Christians around the world suffer different forms of persecution because of their faith. Today, there are 73 countries where Christians face a form of persecution we define as high.
Since 2012, North Korea has ranked first as the black hole of religious freedom, where the mere possession of a Bible is punishable by forced labor or confinement to concentration camps. Burkina Faso has made it on the list for the first time, on account of the growing levels of violence in the Sahel, where in 2019, over 250 civilians were killed in attacks led by Al-Qaeda. Many of them were perpetrated against religious sites full of believers. This extreme persecution affects Christians in 11 different countries. Their suffering is the ecumenism of blood of which Pope Francis speaks.
The persecutor doesn't make any distinctions. That's why we laid out in our analysis a definition of persecution. That way we could see the real numbers. This definition is based on a simple concept, namely, is your identification with Christ a cause of persecution?
The NGO's leaders presented these statistics during a meeting in the Italian Chamber of Deputies. Beyond the chilling numbers are the people. That's why Reverend Mushi traveled from Syria to say that one of the consequences of the war is the worsening of persecution against Christians. He is from Kamishli, a city on the Turkish border where many Christians have been victims of violence because of their faith. He was kidnapped in order to be tried for a very concrete crime.
I thank God because they freed me quickly. The crime they accused me of was constructing a new building for the church without authorization. Nevertheless, I chose to stay in Syria because God called me to stay in Syria. I can speak clearly about persecution against Christians because the bombings and conflicts took place in neighborhoods with Christian majorities. The targets were their homes and shops.
Syria continues to be one of the countries where Christians are steadily disappearing because of extreme persecution. The Open Doors report contains alarming statistics. In 2019, 2,983 Christians were killed because of their faith. That's 8 per day. Moreover, 9,488 churches were attacked, an average of 26 every 24 hours. From February 16 to April 4th, Salesians from all over the world will meet in Turin. They will celebrate their 28th General Chapter, the most numerous in their history. 243 people will participate, including religious with voting rights and invited guests. The objective is to reflect, alongside the youth, on the congregation's mission.
One of the novelties of this chapter will be the presence of 18 youth from the congregation's 7 regions. The rector majors sent them an official invitation.
In addition, they will analyze the Salesians' role in today's world, as well as their collaboration with the laity. They say they hope to listen, discern, and interpret present-day challenges. They also want to pay closer attention to society's main problems, particularly in high-risk areas.
There's a spiritual decisiveness in the congregation, which is to never leave in difficult moments. This is the case with Venezuela. It was also the case with Sierra Leone when it was hit by Ebola. It's the case with Liberia and Syria. During the war in Syria, our brothers always said, "We will not leave in the middle of war."
There are currently 14,614 Salesians spread throughout every continent and 136 countries. The congregation is divided into 7 large regions, organized into a total of 90 provinces.
May 2020 will mark 5 years since the publication of Pope Francis's encyclical Laudato Si. After all this time, its proposals continue to inspire ambitious initiatives. One of them is the so-called Assisi Manifesto. It seeks to transform the environmental crisis into an opportunity to build an economy and a society on a human scale, and to renew the European Union's mission. Various Italian organizations have launched it. It's been supported by the Italian Prime Minister and the President of the European Parliament. Italy can be a leader for progress in this area on the political, economic, and social levels if efforts in this direction aren't global, if we don't manage to convince not just Italy and Europe, but other continents. We will never overcome this challenge. In this moment, we're all asked not only to choose this path, but to come up with ways to pave it. We want to pave it by putting the planet and the human being at the center of the solution. This is the right direction. The so-called Assisi Manifesto has already been signed by more than 2,000 institutions and leaders of Italian society. One of its primary promoters is Francesco Starace, CEO of Enel. This multinational energy company is one of the biggest 100 in the world. Francesco Starace said his company for many years has bet on a circular and ecological economy based on renewable energy sources. When we look at what we've accomplished during these 5 years, doubling the company's value and expanding it to a currently unmatched global dimension, we see that entering into this new type of economy with courage, determination, and initially a little craziness is really very logical and rational. That's why I invite everyone to follow suit. The manifesto was presented at the Sacred Convent of St. Francis in Assisi. The ambitious project brings together the political, business, cultural, and technological fields. It's a lot more than eliminating harmful gas emissions by 2050. As the great artists of Italian culture did, the project aims to show humanity's greatness. Which country consumes the most energy? The United States, Russia, China. You are watching Rome Reports. Which country consumes the most energy? The United States, Russia, China. The correct answer is C. China's consumption is 3,164 million tow. You are watching Rome Reports.
If it's potatoes and veg, I would fry it up and add cheese and meat and other veg and that, and that's what I would do, and we call it bubble and squeak in England, so that would be my fry up, yeah.
Well, we tend to use it, to be honest. There's not a lot of leftover food, but we do try to recycle it where possible. We have a garden waste bin in the UK, so we put any leftovers into that, and you know, hopefully it will come to good use.
If you'd have asked me the questions 10 years ago, we tend to just throw it away, but with all the laws in the UK now, we tend to recycle. We put it into compost, but a lot of the time we tend not to have any waste because we try and eat it all, what we buy, so we don't waste money.
There isn't a lot of leftovers that we have. We try to eat as much as we can.
Normally don't have any, but if we do, it goes back into our garden.
A third of food produced around the world ends up in the trash. However, it isn't only the food that's wasted, but all the processes and resources that go into producing it. That's why in 2016, the Too Good To Go movement was born in Denmark with the goal of finding solutions to this problem. The initiative materialized with the app, also called Too Good To Go. The objective is to connect users to food sale establishments that offer cheaper prices at the end of the day. This pizzeria in Rome has already started using the app.
We're happy not to throw food away. Here it's one of the primary initiatives, and we've already had other ways of not wasting food, so this app is helpful to that end.
It's very easy to use. The app gives users a list of nearby establishments offering this service. The user chooses one, pays through the app, and can go pick up the order at the time set by the establishment.
This for me has always been an important point on which to work in any job. For example, when I worked with children, I would ask them to eat everything on their plate.
The initiative recently won at the Tech 5 Awards for being the European app with the highest potential. It is available in 13 countries and can be downloaded from Google Play and the App Store.
El éter es una sustancia que se encuentra dispersa por todas partes.
The fine line separating medical science from playing God has always been cause for reflection. It has also made it to the big screen. This is the dilemma brought to light in the film Ether. The film is the most recent production of Polish director Krzysztof Zanussi. The plot is set toward the end of the 19th century. It is an adaptation of the myth in which Faust sells his soul to the devil in exchange for worldly pleasures. On this occasion, the protagonist, a doctor, sells his soul in exchange for the power to play with life and death by experimenting with ether.
¿Has visto lo que hace la ciencia? Estamos a un paso de la resurrección.
Ether is a thought-provoking film which allows for various interpretations, thanks to the intellectual formation of its director, who is also a physicist, theologian, and philosopher. I want to share my thoughts and feelings with the audience. The audience interprets them. I'm often surprised by the result because I don't realize I've done what I have in my work. The film touches on another important question, whether or not the ends justify the means. It's a topic just as controversial now as in the 19th century when the movie is set. The premiere of Ether in Spain was a huge success. Krzysztof Zanussi himself attended the event in Madrid. Despite his 80 years of age, the successful and internationally renowned filmmaker doesn't let up in his commitment to bring truly transcendent themes to the world of cinema.
This exhibit shows the wonders of contemporary art preserved in the Vatican museums. Normally, only art specialists have access to this collection of prints and engravings.
The artists who created these pieces captured their ideas in a matrix. The matrix can be wood, metal, or stone. They have worked detail by detail because the images and graphics require so much technique and patience.
After the long process of creating the artist's inspiration, the last step is printing the work on a piece of paper, so each final work is unique. The exhibition also presents 150 prints by different artists such as Salvador Dali, Max Herrmann, and Giacomo Mazzu. It also includes the models of different sculptures, such as the Resurrection by Pericles Fazzini, which is in the Paul VI Audience Hall.
This collection has very spontaneous origins, meaning it wasn't created for a collector. It's the result of artists donating to Paul VI, who invited them to approach the church. Thus, the next generation joined the collection.
The exhibition I Segni del Sacro, le impronte del Reale presents part of the contemporary art collection from the Vatican Museums. It's open to visitors until February 29, 2020.
In our next program, U.S. Ambassador for Religious Freedom highlights persecuted areas in need of global attention. This and much more here on Rome Reports.
If your life were like a blueprint for a house, what would it look like? Would there be many different rooms? A room to represent the choices you make when you are with your family, and another for how you live when you are at work or out with your friends? Well, if we truly want to follow Christ, our house should have only one room, and at its center should be love. See, the scriptures tell us that at every moment, regardless of the circumstance, we must do what love requires. This is the fundamental vocation of every baptized Catholic. If we choose to follow God in love part of the time and turn away from love at other times, we are telling God maybe instead of yes. Our maybe to God becomes a barrier in our relationship with Him. His house truly has only one room, and it is filled with love. He gave us the perfect example of how to say yes. What will we say in return?
Live true. Live Catholic. Live Catholic.
For over 2,000 years, the Catholic Church has consistently transformed through sacred scriptures and sacred tradition. It is comforting to know that some things remain consistent. Live truth, live Catholic. Visit our shop at Shiashi, opposite Gethsemane Cemetery, and find for yourselves the following: monstrance, chalice, candles, clerical shirts, Bibles, writings of the early church fathers, and other sacramentals. For more information, contact Live Truth, Live Catholic Bookshop on 020-222-0376 or 024-960-6155. Live Truth, Live Catholic, your number one stop shop for your religious items.
Rome Reports comes to you from the Department of Social Communications, Catholic Archdiocese of Accra. This and every Sunday from 3:30 to 4 p.m. on GTV.